Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. The modern ocean is a scary place, filled with barracuda, sharks, super squids, and possibly kraken, including giant sea lizards, monster sharks, and even hyper-carnivorous whales. Let's have a look at the most impressive sea monsters ever. Edestus. If you're afraid of sharks, don't worry, there are millions like you. These sea creatures look like they're going to devour you in the first chance they get, even though that isn't the case mostly. We all know modern sharks have impressive bites, like the great white and the tiger shark. But hundreds of millions of years ago, before the dawn of the dinosaurs, there lived a shark with a bite unlike any other, Edestus, the scissor shark. Even though it existed 330 million years ago, we've known about it for just over 150 years. Edestus had a symphysial tooth whorl, except instead of a circular saw, like in most other sharks of its family, Edestus had an arc of teeth on both the roof and floor of its mouth, in what has been described by many as pinking shears. Because Edestus had a very odd tooth configuration with highly curved whorls, paleontologists have long puzzled over how it used its tooth whorls to subdue and eat its prey. But I'm sure it wouldn't have any problem devouring other sea creatures, considering the fact it measured 16 meters in length. Imagining Edestus in action could certainly inspire some B-movie depictions of a frightening predator in the deep. Shastasaurus. Everybody knows that chewing your food carefully is part of good table manners. No one told that to Shastasaurus, though. The size of this marine reptile was between 8 to 15 meters, and it was probably a suction feeder that slurped up little cephalopods and squids in the late Triassic seas some 200 million years ago. Shastasaurus was not a dinosaur. Instead, this creature was an ichthyosaur, a member of a group of fish-shaped marine reptiles that became beautifully adapted to a life spent entirely at sea. Shastasaurus differed from the rest of its family in a strange way, though. Whereas most other ichthyosaurs had long snouts filled with small, conical teeth suited to snatching fish and cephalopods, Shastasaurus had a shortened, toothless jaw. Scientists believe that the evolution of Shastasaurus might be attributable to a boom in squid, which was itself caused by a decrease in oxygen levels. One of the most fascinating facts about Shastasaurus is the fact that it lived primarily off of small fish, cephalopods, and squids. This makes it very similar to modern-day sperm whales because they both have a very similar diet. However, despite their similarity in size and diet, Shastasaurus and sperm whales are in no way related to one another. Bezellosaurus. We know that whales are some of the biggest creatures in the world. It's impossible to think that any other creature would eat it for dinner. Well, that might not have been the case about 50 million years ago. Bezellosaurus was another terrifying sea monster that actually munched on ancient whales. Researchers found that the whale could bite with a force of over 3,600 pounds at the position of its upper third premolar. Bezellosaurus didn't go right for the killing stroke, though. First, it would grip its victim with over 2,300 pounds of force. With prey in place, Bezellosaurus could then toss it back further along the jaw for a deadly shear bite. That's the same trick crocodiles use with turtles to defeat their thick defense. Mosasaurus. You probably remember this beast from Jurassic World. Mosasaurus are considered the great marine reptiles that ruled the seas millions of years ago. Although they're often referred to as the T-Rex of the sea, they were not dinosaurs, but reptiles that returned to the sea during the Cretaceous period. Even though they're aquatic, these great beasts were still reptiles that breathed air. Mosasaurus had around 40 to 50 massive teeth, which were conical and sharp, fitted into a jaw that was long and tapered. This was not a predator that took large bites out of its prey, but one that pierced its prey and swallowed it whole, much like modern snakes. Scary! Mosasaurus likely preyed on fish, turtles, ammonites, and smaller mosasaurs and plesiosaurs. Mosasaurus was a reptile, and like all other reptiles, it had to breathe air, so it would need to come to the surface now and again to fill its lungs with oxygen. Its limbs had evolved to be paddle-like, with skin fusing the finger and toe bones together. They had a slim body plan with a long, strong tail, and swam with a serpentine undulation of the whole body, using the limbs more for maneuvering than locomotion. Echolopterus renani. Most of us freak out at the thought of inch-long ants and foot-wide spiders, so it's easy to imagine screaming like a little girl if you ever stumbled on one of these living things. Nothing about the words sea scorpion is comforting to begin with, so this should not come off as too awful. This was one of the 2 largest arthropods to have ever lived, reaching a length of over 2.4 meters of armored, clawed horror. On the plus side, sea scorpions have been extinct since before the dinosaurs, having been wiped out in the Permian-Triassic extinction event, which killed 90% of all life on Earth. There's no evidence that any sea scorpions were actually venomous, but the structure of their tail is similar to a modern scorpion's, so it might have been. Dunkleosteus. Speedy, powerful, and happy to eat most things, this was a creature to avoid 360 million years ago. Dunkleosteus was as violent as it looked. It had a powerfully built and armor-plated round its head. It was streamlined and shark-like. Dunkleosteus lacked true teeth. Instead, it had 2 long, bony blades that could snap and crush almost anything in sight, even turtle shells. Pigment cells suggest Dunkleosteus had dark colors on its back and was silvery on its belly. This fish was anything but picky with its food and ate anything in sight. It ate fish, sharks, and even its own kind. And it seems that Dunkleosteus suffered from stomachache as a result. Its fossils are often associated with vomit and semi-digested remains of fish. Dunkleosteus may have been one of the earliest animals to exist as male or female, meaning that pairs of fish had to mate physically. Helicoprion. It's one thing to be terrifying, and it's another thing if it looks like something out of an alien movie. This prehistoric shark might be the most fascinating and terrifying shark you're ever going to see. The Helicoprion was a fish alive 270 million years ago, and it had the most unusual feature, a spiral set of teeth. Yes, you heard that right. In fact, when it was discovered, these fossils were actually thought to be some kind of exotic ammonite shell. These arrangements of fossil teeth are today referred to as a tooth whorl. Just imagine how easy it'd be to catch prey with those set of teeth. Scientists are still very confused about how this creature would have caught its prey. Still, I'm sure it wouldn't have any trouble ripping through another shark. Vivien Melville. I wasn't kidding when I mentioned the hypercarnivorous whales. Here it is! Imagine a cross between an orca and a sperm whale. Vivien Melville was a whale that ate other whales. It had the largest teeth of any animal to ever use its teeth to eat. Can you imagine how scary it must be? They lived in the same oceans and ate the same food as the Megalodon, so this whale actually had to compete with the largest predatory shark ever. Not to mention, their head was 10 feet long and featured the same echolocating equipment as modern toothed whales, making them much more effective in murky water. In case it was not obvious, this beast was named after the Leviathan, a giant sea monster from the Bible, and Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick. If the great white whale had been one of these, it would have eaten the Pequot and everyone aboard as a snack. Elasmosaurus. Elasmosaurus was a large marine reptile that lived during the late Cretaceous in a shallow sea that once covered what is now central North America. It belonged to a group of reptiles called Plesiosaurs, which are characterized by the possession of a very long neck, small head, turtle-shaped body with flippers rather than legs, and a short tail. Elasmosaurus could grow up to 35 feet long, and over 20 feet of that was just neck. It had the largest number of neck bones of any known animal, with 72 vertebrae in all. It isn't known why they had such huge necks, but scientists believe it may have aided in their feeding techniques, like a giraffe. Like plesiosaurs, Elasmosaurus had large, paddle-like flippers to help it swim through the sea. It was full of sharp teeth for snatching prey, which likely included a wide variety of fish. Elasmosaurus lived in the late Cretaceous period, about 80 million years ago. Megalodon. Finally, we have the most famous prehistoric creature, the Megalodon. Well, it's hard to keep the idea of a shark the size of a school bus out of pop culture. I mean, come on. In the world of big predators, even the tallest bears and birds wouldn't want to tangle with the biggest shark that ever lived, about 15 million years ago to about 1.5 million years ago. This meant they might have still been around for the first humans. Yikes. This 16-meter creature preyed on whales, apparently biting off their fins to immobilize them. Just for comparison, a Megalodon was 3 times bigger than a normal shark these days. A wide number of people believe Megalodon still exists and hasn't been sighted yet because only 3 to 5% of the waters of the world have been discovered. Which one of these sea creatures did you find the most fascinating? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel.